Now first, what you're going to need, like I said, is something for the base. For my Garrosh Hellscream, like I said before, I'm using the Orc Warclans Mega Boss from Iron Jaws Army. I think this is a good base to start off with. You will need some extra bits for this, such as I have bought the skulls from Citadel's range for some of the little skulls what I'm going to be using for the tusks of Manaroth, and even the skull on his belt. A bit like these two. So I have put a bit of milliput over on this skull and cut it in half. This is normally like I'm assuming like a Tyranid skull. But this will be used as Manaroth's sort of skull on the shoulder plates for Garrosh. So like I said, I've used milliput to create like a rope which looks like it's been tied on. Also in the skull set is another it's like a little ram skull or a goat skull. So what I've done is I took the skull and I cut off and shaved down the horns, leaving like this little skull, which would fit nicely onto the belt. Another couple of things that you're going to need for this build. I won't go over too many of the paints. The only paints I will say are the paints I found which would be good to create the Magheart Orc flesh tone. So of course you will need your hobby snippers and a scalpel or an X-Acto knife. Some milliput, because you are going to be doing some sculpting and some filling in. Some skulls. I would recommend just buying skulls separated on eBay. That's where I got my skulls from, instead of buying a whole set. For the paints, for the base tone, I would use rat skin flesh. After you've base toned all the flesh for your Garrosh Hellscream, I would then shade it with a contrast flesh of Gulliman flesh. From there we're going to highlight it a bit more, like go over another layer with rat skin just to bring out that base tone again. And we're going to highlight it with a layer of Kislev flesh. And then a final highlight of Flayed One flesh. What you're going to want to do is, to begin with, is cut out your Mega Boss from the sprues. It does come with a huge skull on the one shoulder plate and this little skull. This little skull is like separated, so you don't have to glue it on. For this skull, what I did was I did do sub-assembly and built separate parts of the model to begin with, and just like dry fitted it together to make sure it was all okay. And then I used my X-Acto blade to cut the skull off from the one shoulder, as you can see. I have undercoated it with a undercoat spray of grey cedar from Citadel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint most of this and then leave this shoulder plate and use milliput to sort of fill in the gaps before painting them. And then I've actually just tested and glued the skull off the shoulder plate together just to get a feel for bone colours. Also, forgot to mention, for the tusks of Manaroth on the shoulder blade, I mentioned the skull, but also the Gargon head from the Beasts of Chaos army has some amazing horns. It's like a minotaur, and so what I did is I bought some horns from eBay cut them up and use a bit of milliput. So these look like the tusks of Manoroth. So these will be used as the shoulder plates. Ideally, anyway. Also, using the axe to create Gore Howl, I've used some Seraphim bits, just like the small armor bits, to create the armor plating on the head of the axe, as well as using some of the bone spikes from the Seraphim armor kit to create the spikes on the back of the axe, and then use milliput to create like a leather strap. Still in two minds about putting the detail on Gore Howl itself, if you're familiar with the axe, which hopefully if you're watching this video you will be. You'll know Gore Howl actually has some decoration. Anyway, moving on to painting some Magheart Orc flesh. Hello everyone, and welcome to my first YouTube video. I'm here today to record this video, maybe a first of many, to show you my recipe for kit bashing and creating Garrosh Hellscream using the Megaboss figure from Warhammer Age of Sigmar as the base. The reason why I'm creating this video is because I have been looking on YouTube, Google, Instagram, anywhere for a painting tutorial for the skin tone for Garrosh, or widely known for the race Magheart Orc flesh tone, and I have yet to find one. So I thought, you know what, I have decided on my own recipe for a skin tone. So I'm going to make my own video and put it up on YouTube for future references if anyone feels inspired by this video, or if they are curious in creating their own Magheart Orc themed Iron Jaws army. They can hopefully find this video informative and useful as a paint job or a reference. Okay, as you can see, I've now finished the base layer of rat skin flesh all over the flesh areas of my torso. Next, we're going to be applying the all over shade using Guilliman flesh. You can thin this down with contrast medium. However, I will just be, as we're going to be highlighting it anyway, I will just be applying it straight from the ball all over. If it starts to pull too much in one area, just use the brush to move the contrast paint out of that area. This is going to darken down the skin, which is why we're going to be going back over it with rat skin flesh, just to bring up those raised areas again. It does look like a lot, but don't forget you are going to be moving the paint around the body to get a nice even coat and shade in the definition. So this one, the neck, pull in a little bit. That's fine, I can just pick it up with my brush as much as I can and just distribute it somewhere else. If you find you've put on too much, just clean off your brush, bit of water, and dry it off, and then just pick up some more of the contrast paint. So before we actually get started, just to show what I've done so far, I painted the hand and the face of Garrosh in this colour scheme, and as you can see, it's come out quite well. Perfect. So, without further ado, I'm going to start off with painting the flesh, which would be the inside of this little crevice, like the neck, around the arms, which would to begin with. But saying that, the way I've painted this so far, leaving the armour till last, it doesn't really matter if I get some of this base coat onto the armour bits, because I'm just going to cover it later anyway. A bit like that, see? I don't know if that was just me being clumsy or if that's due to my old age. Anyway. So, I'm being currently joined by my painting mascot, Milo. Just coming back in here right now, just to show you how I'm getting in around the neck. Remember some of this, like this bit here, is the inside of the head, like the mouth and the tongue. So you don't need to cover that right now, as you're going to be painting it, the inside of the mouth colours and tones anyway. Just going to paint over it just to add a bit extra base paint. Okay, so now the shade has dried, the contrast paint is dry. As you can see, it's darkened down the skin a fair amount. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to our original base colour and just layer up some of the flesh, mainly like the top areas of flesh rather than the underneath, keep those shaded. As that's what would be being hit by the light. I'm going to use a slightly smaller sharper brush than the previous brush, just because it would be a little bit more accurate. Remember, you're not covering all of what you shaded, just the top highlights. Okay, so for the Kislev flesh layer, I'm going to be using a much smaller, sharper, finer brush. This is small layer brush from Citadel. Take a small bit onto the brush, should be enough. Water it down. We're just going to tackle some more of the race highlights. You don't want too much on the brush, just enough. Maybe thin that down slightly a bit more. Lovely. sort of roll the brush in the paint to get a nice sharp point. At this point, it might be a good idea to also, if you can, pick out some of the vein details. As you can see, I'm not the best painter, but I do what I can. So far, so good. Okay, so now we have finished our one layer of Kislev flesh. As you can see, I sort of picked out the highlights I'd be hit by the light, let's say like the sun, maybe. So now we're going to go over the very tops of those layered edges with flayed one flesh, and just pick out the most raised highlights. Thin down your water to a nice your paint to a nice consistency of water. Twirl your brush, get it to a nice point, and just very carefully highlight the very tops. Try and catch those veins too. This step shouldn't take very long, as you're only doing a very small amount of highlighting. And there you have it. Our Magheart Orc Garrosh Hellscream skin has been completed. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope this has inspired you to paint your army in a unique form created by yourself. Thanks for watching, and take care.